Bradley Smith used to say that the Jews aren't the problem, it's us. The Jews are such a small minority, except for Israel and maybe New York, that they could never rule and control what we're doing. But if they are doing it anyway, and a lot of people think they do it because we let them. And the issue is, I think we need to understand, and that may hurt some of the readers or the listeners. We need to understand that Christianity is a Jewish sect. So when we're talking about there are 13 million Jews in the world, and I said no, there are 1.5 billion. Every Christian is a Jew. Christianity has, by definition, must have by definition, a very positive attitude to Judaism, because if you look at the Bible, 80%, 90% of the Bible is the Old Testament. So when we're talking about Jews, we need to understand that any other Stone Age religion that defines itself by ethnicity has basically been wiped off the earth or face of the earth, or has been reduced to insignificance. You still have some of these tribal religions in remote areas of Asia and Africa and so forth. They still exist, and maybe in South America among the indigenous people. But they don't get any influence over people. Judaism is the one exception, and they have this influence because of the clout they get with Christianity. If it weren't for Christianity, Judaism would long have been absorbed and reformed and be not there anymore, or be something completely different. Now that's not the case. The undergirding structure that keeps it up is Christianity, the credibility as God's chosen people they get from 1.5 billion people signing up on that idea. And I think that's one of the main reasons why Jews in the Western world have a lot of influence, but they don't have it really in the Islamic countries, because they don't have that concept. They don't have the Old Testament. They have a completely different narrative. Islamic religion still has a connection, of course. They see similarity by origin and concept of God and so forth with Judaism, with the three monotheistic religions. But they have a different way, different approach. I myself have been raised Christian, Catholic actually, and I'm still active nowadays. And I'm still, because of my socialization and my religious life, I'm feeling it myself. I was raised that way. The Jews were the chosen people, and when the 1973 war broke out, I was a boy, and I got the vibes from my environment that everybody in Germany was hoping that the Jews will win and beat up the Arabs, even though that was clearly an aggressive war. No, the 73 one was not. That was what the Arabs started, but it was a continuation, of course, of the 68 war, which was an aggression of Israel. But in any war, things aren't easy, but it was put to the Western nations by Western outlets in a one-sided way. Of course, Israel is the victim. They have every right to defend themselves no matter what, and everyone was cheering them on and hoping for it, and so was I. And going to church, and you always hear something from the Old Testament, and the Jewish factor is always in there. That's how they get power. By kind of 1.5 billion people in the whole Western world signing up the idea that they're the chosen people, and then you add to this, they have been persecuted for 2,000 years, with the climax of persecution in the Third Reich. They're the ultimate victim, and you can never criticize the victim, and so this whole thing, I think, has so much clout, has so much influence because of the Christian structure of the Western world. Now, we could analyze how does it look like, how much clout, how much influence and power do Jews have for instance, in Japan and in China, where you don't have the Christian Western world, and maybe India. Is it different there? Do they have a more relaxed way of looking at things? Do they even understand what's going on in the West? So as irrational as really the politics are with support for Israel and letting the Israel lobby kind of run certain aspects of our foreign affairs and aspects of what is politically acceptable, politically correct, and what's not inside of our societies. It's like, I don't know, because I haven't lived in Asia. I don't know what their view on it is, if they really comprehend what's going on. But there was one indicator, of course. I remember in the 1990s that a Japanese magazine published a revisionist article. And that was the last issue the magazine ever had. His name was Marco Polo. And after they published that article, all major corporations instantly withdraw any advertisement. And as you know, in the print media world, periodicals, they live from advertisement, not from subscription fees, but from advertisement. And as soon as they lost the advertisement fees, the magazine folded and it was over. A big part of it was, of course, Western societies, Western corporations who withdrew on pressure. And so we're all interconnected nowadays. China and Japan are just as susceptible to that pressure because a lot of the global trade and so forth is dominated by Western, if you want to call it Western corporations, finance, and so forth. But still internally, do the Chinese understand the dynamics that are going on, and do they have similar dynamics? I don't know. So, how to approach it as a Christian? I say, okay, you need to get rid of Christianity if you want to get rid of that problem.